Andrea Tessmann.
Yes, Kirk Buchner.
Look what I found. I got us a guest.
Yay, we like guests.
Yes, we do like guests. Fonda Bryant, someone who I've become very enamored with. We've talked quite a few times, but we've never actually sort of seen face to face.
I've never seen you face to face, Kirk.
Yeah, a lot better looking in person, right?
I know, you're fine.
I appreciate you lying. This actually makes my day.
Hey, I do not lie. You're fine, Kirk. Don't let anybody tell you differently.
Okay. Well, technically, this isn't about, Fonda's not here to discuss our original song, but consider this a 2-for-1 because we're actually going to be looking at another #1 song afterwards. And Fonda's got a great story because she is the daughter of that person, but not, yes, but not of Bobby Goldsboro, because I don't think anyone wants to be his kid. Dear God. I
remember that song as a kid, though. I remember that song. What year did it come out? 1960 what?
68.
1968.
I was 8 years old. I remember that song well.
But so I guess we should start off with that because I don't know how the hell this ever made the radio. This late 60s, you've got all this great stuff coming out of San Francisco. Motown's doing phenomenal. The Stones are putting out some of the best stuff. The Beatles have some of their great music going on. And you've got Bobby Goldsboro. What the hell is this?
This
But
song
you gotta remember now, back in the day, back in the 60s and stuff, they also had folk music on there too, you know, that kind of, because I just think about when I was 8 years old, we had a station here called Big Waves, which is now Kiss 95.1, but it wasn't FM like it is now, it was AM. And I remember his song, Honey, Bobby Goldsboro would be on there with Black artists, with white artists. That's what I always tell young people a lot of times. I said, music is so segregated now. You got your hip hop stations, you got your easy listening stations. But when I was growing up, everything was played on one station. The Ohio Players, the Four Tops, Bobby Goldsboro, you know, just everybody was played on the same station. And I think in a way that was really good because it helped me to like a little bit of everything. You know, when a Black woman goes to see Aerosmith, Black people ask me, what are you doing going to see them? But they have to realize my music journey, which was listening to a little bit of everything on a station like Big Waves.
Okay. That's a great way. I was exposed to all sorts of music growing up, and it really, I think, expanded my horizons. But I think more my surprise with this song going to #1 is it's a terrible piece of music in a lot of ways. It lasted 5 weeks and it bumped Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, or
oh, did it?
I think it did. Or maybe that's what bumped it finally, but it was right around there. Or maybe it bumped Roy Orbison. Anyways, there was like some really big players at this point that have lasting longevity.
See, I didn't think it was a horrible song. Okay, well, you know, because when now I'm gonna tell you that song, man, what was that song that Vicki Lawrence made? That was, to me, was a terrible song. The night that the lights went out in Georgia.
Yeah, we haven't got to that one yet.
Yeah,
eventually we will.
Yeah, that's a pretty terrible one too. But this one, okay, so my issues with this song, it's a cutesy, trite little melody, whatever. There's a lot of that going on at that time. But the narrator's just a dick. The entire song, he's like, oh, I'm so sad, I miss my wife. I made fun of her and laughed at her and she cried a lot. And I laughed when she hurt herself. And I came home and she was crying over nothing. I'm pretty sure he was cheating on her. She knew she was crying and she offed herself. She unalived herself. That's my current day. I shouldn't laugh at this, but
we have to
take on it.
He's an
asshole.
Well, okay, so I think we should go through the lyrics, right? So, I mean, it starts off innocent enough. See the tree, how big it's grown, but friend, it hasn't been too long. It wasn't big. And he goes, I laughed at her and she got mad at the first day that she planted it was just a twig. So we already start off where he's laughing at her just for gardening.
Yep.
I think when you plant something, you hope it's going to grow. So
I'm glad I was 8. 60-year-old, you sure didn't listen to the lyrics back then. So maybe that's why I don't.
You know what? We
You
talked
know.
about this the other week with
Yeah.
the Macarena too, about how politicians and school children were singing this song that is literally about this girl whose boyfriend's off joining the military, so she's sleeping with two of his friends. And they don't even hide the lyrics, but we all just sang along, just blind to that. I was a little
I think
shocked
that's
when
probably sometimes
actually-
why they do songs like that, because the music is so catchy. You're not really paying attention to the lyrics. Like, what's the song just recently with the Rolling Stones? I was singing that song, and then when everybody was making a stink over it, I went and looked back at the lyrics. I'm like, oh my
Would that be
God,
Brown
I'm singing
Sugar?
a racist song. Brown Sugar.
Yeah, which they now decided, yeah, maybe we shouldn't sort of like talk about. Yeah, anyway, that's. I won't go
I knew it was a song about a Black woman. I just didn't know it was about slavery and all of that, and raping and all that stuff. So again, when you don't really, sometimes you really don't pay attention to the lyrics until you get older, and then you're like, man, that song was really crap.
I
Well,
just
let's-
wonder how my parents let me listen to half of the stuff that I was listening to and singing along with at the time.
Yeah. Well, with me being born in the 1960s, everything was about drugs. I mean, now you go back through it, because my son and I argue all the time about rap music compared to what I listened to growing up in the 60s. And some of our music was pretty bad. Pretty bad.
Mhm.
Old Black Betty. I hate that song. And they played at football games.
Ram Jam. That did not go
Oh,
number
Black
one.
Betty. Yes, sir. Or who can anybody name that song where I remember we were flying along and hit something in the air? Remember that song? It was a terrible song. It was about a plane crash.
I'm not sure which one.
Oh
that
man,
is.
it was terrible. It was the lyrics went, I was scared of that song as a child. It went, I remember we were flying along and hit something in the air. So like I said, thank God I was a kid. A lot of
Must have been done by John Denver or JFK Jr.
No, it was.
Okay. All right, so the lyrics continue where he's making fun of his wife. Then the snow came out and she ran out to brush the snow away so it wouldn't die. Came running in excited, slipped and almost hurt herself, and I laughed till I cried.
I think if
Huh.
she'd actually hurt herself, he probably would have laughed till he peed his pants.
Yeah.
Is that a domestic violence song?
Well, no, but
At least neglect, if not domestic. Like,
How about verbal, maybe verbal cruelty,
yeah, emotional abuse.
emotional abuse?
The thing is, this keeps coming up in the song that, oh, he came home late and she was crying over some late night talk show host or something. It's like, no, she was probably crying because she thinks you're off stooping some other woman. Like,
yeah, actually, why is he coming home so late at this point? Unless he's doing some kind of shift work. But-
the late show
But
is on.
it's even worse before that. She was always young at heart, kind of dumb and kind of smart. I talk that way about my dog.
Yeah, he sounds like he's verbally abusive.
Yeah.
And then he goes, I surprised her with a puppy, kept me up all Christmas Eve 2 years ago. Well, so I guess here's a dog. Now leave me alone.
Lord have mercy.
And then it would
Again, I'm glad I was 8 and didn't understand.
Yep.
and it would sure embarrass her when I came in from working late, because I would know that she'd been sitting there and crying over some sad, silly late show. And honey, I miss you. Da 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 da. She wrecked the car and she was sad and so afraid that I'd be mad. But what the heck? Though I pretended hard to be, guess you could say she saw through me and hugged my neck. What the hell?
So instead of consoling her and saying it's okay, you're pretending to be mad when she's already upset. Pretending.
Was he a one-hit wonder?
No. Sadly, no. He had a couple other songs. One of them's called "Watching Scotty Grow."
Oh, I remember. I think I remember that song. I hope I was little when that was out too.
Losing his virginity at 17 to a
That's another
31-year-old
song, yeah.
woman.
Who was his writers?
He actually not. Mac Davis wrote the Scotty Grow part. that one.
Oh, okay.
But
And Honey was written by Bobby something else.
Russell,
Everybody working, Bobby Russell, I think.
but I'm not.
Everybody working on this song was named Bob or Bobby, I think.
I guess there's just a lot of Bobs in the 60s. I came home unexpectedly and caught her crying needlessly in the middle of the day. And it was early spring when the flowers bloom and the robins sang, she went away. Okay. Again, why is she crying? I guess
Why is she always crying?
Sounds like, I guess coming from my mental health and suicide prevention background, I think it sounds like she was almost depressed. She was dealing with depression.
Well, yeah, look at her
very
husband.
much sounds exactly like that.
Yeah, she was dealing.
She was dealing with an
I'm gonna give y'all a
emotionally.
little something to say. It said, and it was in the early spring. People always think that when people die by suicide, it's during the holidays and stuff, but that's not true. More people die by suicide in the springtime, spring and early summer.
Oh,
So,
Yep. February is one of the worst months for it.
yeah.
interesting. I didn't know that.
Anytime, once we hit the spring months, that's when, and they don't know exactly why, but it's just this early spring and summer, especially when the flowers start to bloom. So this is what this kind of sounds like.
I don't think that's where he was going with this.
No, I mean, that's not where he was going.
No, but it really, every verse sounds like she was being
depressed
emotionally
and maybe
abused.
thinking
She was
about
depressed and he's
not
a
being
dick.
around anymore.
Exactly.
Well, that's what happened. Because one day while I was not at home, which happened a lot, while she was there and all alone, the angels came.
Oh my goodness.
Now all I have is memories of Honey, and I wake up nights and call her name. Of course, we don't know what her name is unless her name really was Honey.
So this really could be a song, looking at it now, that she was extremely depressed and took her own life.
So this song could have been turned into something really emotional in that sense if there was even the slightest bit of contrition or acceptance that he may have had a part to play in her death, but there's none of that. It's just, oh, I'm sad.
No self-awareness.
No self-awareness whatsoever.
I'd rather hear a hillbilly song where he just comes out and says that I beat my wife. Yeah. not that I want people to do that. I want to be very, very clear. But
it is something that was it. She was extremely depressed. He didn't pick up on the signs, and by his behavior, it just fueled what she was dealing with, and she just got tired of it and just said, forget it. Oh my gosh.
I wonder if the writer had any clue that's what he was doing.
I don't know. Well, this was what, 1960 something, and look where we are now. We're still dealing with this stuff. So
we're also looking at
Absolutely.
an era though where a lot of men still treated the narrator here treated the women as more of a possession.
Chattel.
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah.
Domestic violence. I mean, you think about it, there were really no domestic violence shelters back there. Women didn't have a place to go to. Just because just growing up, growing up in the 60s, didn't know until years later, I had an uncle that had 5 children with his wife and 5 children with his mistress. And I'm just like, and it was so acceptable back then because my aunt knew, but she was a homemaker and she wasn't going anywhere. So you're right, women back then, it was nothing for a man to verbally, physically, or both women back then.
Because he was the provider and they didn't have any options.
And she was at home all day.
Yeah.
And not being able to get out, isolated, no friends. That's a recipe for disaster.
And that's what the song
Y'all made
is.
me depressed.
And it's sung by this milquetoast guy with great hair, I will say, for that era. Like the helmet hair. I mean, hey, back then, if that was the era, and I might as well. I mean, of course, if you look at pictures of him now where he's got the wig on.
Where's the wig?
It's got to be. It has to be because it just doesn't look real.
Yeah.
At all. But well, whatever. Also, I don't think this guy can sing particularly well.
Not particularly.
It's more just it's like half singing, half talking. That's kind of the way it felt.
Yep. So I personally like the suggestion that maybe the angels that came that took her away were the Hell's Angels, and she just had enough of his shit and joined everything.
Maybe that was it.
I think that's the nicer way to look at this.
Man, that
Wow.
song is very depressing.
I never thought we'd sort of make the Hells Angels the good guys here, but maybe we did.
So how did this go to number one? It went to number one, like it was literally right when JFK was assassinated. I think there might be.
No,
Wasn't it?
no, that was
No,
60.
John, I was 3 years old when
Oh.
John Kennedy was assassinated.
No, it wasn't John.
Oh, RFK?
Robert or Martin
RFK.
Luther King. Because
No, it was
and
Martin
Robert
Luther
were
King.
assassinated in what, 1968?
Yeah, it was Martin Luther King. Sorry, I'm totally getting my history wrong here. I knew it was a big assassination. It was when Martin Luther King was assassinated. So I think there might have been some sentimental ties to this sweet sounding song about
does sound
lamenting the
sweet.
death.
If you're not like dissecting
If
the
you're not-
lyrics.
Yeah. Well, as Fonda said, she liked it as a kid. She thought it was a nice song.
Well, did you like it or did you tolerate it, Fonda?
Well, growing up then, like I said, I actually kind of liked it
Mm-hmm.
growing up. You know, like I said, you heard the lyrics, but you didn't really hear them.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how it was, you know, kind of growing up as a kid. Now when you look back on certain songs, you're like, how in the world did I not pick it up? But when you're a kid, you just get caught up in the music. If it makes you dance or if it makes you feel a certain way, you don't really pay attention. But now when I go back and look at some of the songs that I liked as a kid, they weren't cool.
That's Andrea and I almost every week.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think even as adults, we do it. We listen to catchy melodies playing in the background and we enjoy them on the surface without actually looking at what they're talking about or saying.
Because
So-
There's no
I
real
even,
meaning behind it.
yeah,
Yeah. So
because I even like some rap music, and then my son has had to educate me on what they're saying, and when he tells me, I blush. So I'm like, hey, I got to get the clean version. So yeah.
so anyone who came here hoping that this was going to be something really nice about Bobby, we've actually gotten hate messages for us. Yeah, Fonda, we got a hate message for us attacking Captain and Tennille. So
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Captain, oh my goodness.
yeah,
Well, people like who they like, and that's their I guess that's their icon.
well, so I guess closing off here with Bobby. Bobby's still alive.
How old is he now? Wait a minute, I just
know.
pulled him up.
I think he's still alive. 80.
Okay, so my mom is 78, so they're about the same age.
Yeah. So and he kept working. He did all the music for Evening Shade, the Burt Reynolds show that happened. I think that was the early 90s. Apparently became good friends with Burt. Maybe they went to the same. That's probably who hooked him up with his toupee.
Oh, could be.
Could be.
He also had his own, I mean, in the early 70s when everybody had a talk show, he had a talk show.
That
for a
I
couple
didn't
of
know.
years.
I couldn't even find. Apparently that lasted 3 years, and I couldn't find any clips on it on YouTube, which is
Nope.
crazy considering. How does a show
Everything
that
on
exists
YouTube.
3 years not have any kind of recording or anything? Like I don't know if he did skits. I don't know anything. I'm not even sure if some of the video I found of him performing might have even been from that show. I don't know. I have no clue.
Man,
So like that was so if that would have been from 73 to 75, that would have been network television.
Mhm.
So that had to have been seen by millions upon millions of people. But no, it's like it never happened.
man.
Yeah, who knows? But he also, so what else did he do? There was some kids show that he wrote and voiced and wrote the music for.
Yeah,
and
some
blah, blah, blah.
puppet or something. I don't know. I couldn't be bothered to even look any further at that point.
Yeah.
Once I know that he's doing a kid show and maybe he's got the puppet in his hand, want to watch Scotty grow?
Ugh.
Sorry.
When
we
you
should
asked
move
if I'd
off of
heard
this.
that, I was just thinking, Scotty doesn't know. Scotty doesn't
Yes!
know. Watching Scotty grow.
Well, I hate to tell y'all too, but he got in a little bit of legal trouble with being accused of
Oh, did he?
yeah, he got in trouble for pop country singer Bobby Goldsboro said he will obtain custody of his 8-year-old daughter if it takes every cent he's got, because he had been accused of that the singer last December alleged that the singer molested her and a friend when they were both 11. So he had charges of
Oh, geez.
molestation.
How did I miss this?
I didn't see anything about that.
Yeah, it says, hold on, I'm reading it now. Goldsboro's comments on molestation charges.
Oh,
Said testimony about his daughter Terry, now 17, at Goldsboro's divorce trial last December, alleged that the singer molested her and a friend when they were both 11.
maybe that's what he calls his dick. Want to watch Scotty grow?
Oh, come on. You had to know that that was the joke there.
I know. But it just, like I said, it just, with these artists and stuff, I swear, you just never know.
No.
You just never know.
Oh, man.
That's why I don't ever sit up and get caught up with entertainers, because not saying all of them are bad or all of them are shady, but I swear to you, some of these older artists and stuff, it's just, I don't know.
So is that a good transition into your story, Fonda?
Oh, with my dad. Well, something, it is true, because with my father being famous, I just don't really get caught up with celebrities, and part of it is because not all of them are good people, and my father was definitely not a good person.
Well, let's tell everyone who your father is.
Oh, first off, my father was a late R&B singer, Johnny Taylor, who had the first ever platinum record certified by the RIAA, Disco Lady, in 1976. And that was really, really a big deal because of the fact that my father, when you think about Aretha Franklin, James Brown, some of those big, big artists, the Temptations, to know that he had the first platinum record is really something. But at the end of the day, for me, I have to separate the entertainer from the father, because he was a deadbeat dad. Never helped me, never did anything for my mom, but I will never take away the great entertainer he was. So that's how I'm able to deal with him.
And you were recently profiled in Rolling Stone.
Yes.
And you've done something pretty remarkable. And a common thread that Andrea and I sort of come across when we're doing this is what I think we've done like 55, 56 of these shows now. A lot of the artists that we talk about have been screwed over by a record company or an agent, and it's fascinating to us how people have touched so many people's lives, have made millions, lived the rock and roll lifestyle, as it were, but by 40 don't have a whole lot to show for it. And your father was a victim of another one of those crooked deals. And I'd like if you could sort of tell us about that and what you did.
Well, the thing is that when my father died 21 years ago, he had several record companies. His first record company was with Sam Cooke, SAR Records. And then when he was murdered, his wife sold her share to two white guys that ended up selling it to APCO. So that's the gospel side that we don't get much money at all. I mean, we get checks for $1 and something from APCO. And I said, listen, just wait till it gets to $50 and send it, because to get a check that small to me is not worth even cashing. So then it was APCO. It's SAR, then it's APCO. Then he was also a part of Stax. And then from Stax, he went to Columbia, which is CBS. And I don't know what happened at Columbia Records, but they went bankrupt just like Stax, which I still have a hard time understanding how Stax went bankrupt with all those great artists. They had everybody, Aretha, Elvis, all these great artists. So anyway, he ended up getting up under the Sony label after Disco Lady came out. And I don't know what kind of deal, because I found out today my father did 8 albums for Sony and did not know it till today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he did 8 albums. They obviously didn't do well, but he did 8 albums. So we're going to try to get the masters. Anyway, he went to Sony, and allegedly Sony said he started borrowing, getting advancements for royalties. I mean, getting advancements for whatever reason, because my father had drug and alcohol problems, and that was probably some of it, but still it's supposedly. So anyway, when he died, we didn't get any money from Sony. And I started asking, hey, how come we're not getting any money from y'all? Well, your father owes us $100,000. And I said, oh, okay. I said, so as soon as we get that paid off, y'all are gonna give us our royalties. Yes. Now that was in 2002. Yeah, because it took us 2 years to sell the estate. So then we're waiting. Every year would go by. The royalties, first off, I had to learn how to read the royalties. And if you can read those, you need to get $1 million, because in that article in the Rolling Stone magazine, they said even people who work in royalties don't know how to read them. They're very complicated, and it's by design, because they don't want us to learn
specific
how to
legal degree to be able to actually understand that. Crap.
Yes, but I figured it out because I'm like, wait a minute. First off, where's the $100,000? And then all this money coming in, how come we don't see a deduction? They should have had it where we could see exactly, us paying it back, but they didn't. Mm-hmm. So kept getting worse. And I'm like, y'all, by now we should have paid this back. I got email after email going back and forth with Sony, and they just blowing smoke. So finally, fast forward to 2020, George Floyd gets murdered, and racial uproar in this country and across the world. And James Brown's daughter, Deanna Brown, is one of my good friends. And she had an article about how Sony, well, first off, how Black artists were taken advantage of. And then it had on there, Sony was going to donate $100 million to social justice and racial equity. And I lost it. I said, wait a minute, how can they sit up and do that when they're not even cleaning up their own backyard? I said, I'm not going to have that. So I reached out to Sony and told them in no uncertain terms, how can y'all sit up and say y'all want to, do all this social injustice with $100 million when it's on the backs of Black artists and artists that you stole money from? So it took 2 weeks. Sony reached back out. Fonda, we are no longer going to take y'all's royalties, and we're going to give you back 2 years. And I said, I want a conversation with y'all. So Andrea Finkelstein, who's been with Sony over 20 something years, she called me and said, that, well, Fonda, he really didn't borrow just 100,000. He borrowed 50 here, 60 here, 70 here. And I said, well, where's the proof? Can I please see some canceled checks, some paperwork, something? Oh, Fonda, we don't have that. What do you mean you don't have that? So I'm supposed to believe that he borrowed all this money, but y'all have no proof. I said, so do y'all just normally just say, okay, an artist comes up and says, I need $50,000. Okay, take it. No paperwork. I said, y'all full of crap. So I told them, when they told us that they were going to wipe out the recouping, and they were going to give us $97,000, which Geraldine, his ex-wife, gets 50% of that. We get the other 50%, 9 heirs. I wasn't happy with that. And see, this is what they kind of expect of heirs. They expect us to be dumb, greedy, and desperate. If they flash $5,000, $10,000, oh my God, that's some real money. No, it's not, compared to what my father did, what other artists did. No, it's not. So I said, I want y'all to put it in writing because I don't trust you. I said, Sony has a bad reputation. And they put it in writing, and they said my father still owed negative $72,000. That's how much he still owed. And I said, y'all just full of it. So
how can they say $72,000 if they have no records showing how much he took?
That's what I told them. I said, I'd love to see where all this money's coming from.
I love this because I am an accountant. That's my actual day job. And all of this is
this isn't your full-time gig, Andrea?
You don't pay me to do this, Kirk. I just do this out of the, I don't know,
that's a release. Yes. But it was just really something, because I said, how could we have gone from 100,000 20 years ago to now we're down to 72? And I've seen all this money coming in, and I know it's a difference between writer royalties, publishing, and all that, but still that should have been paid. So she said, we're gonna do this for y'all as a one-time thing, and we're gonna give y'all's royalties. So I said, well, we're gonna see about this. So when we started getting our royalties, we can go in a portal and we can cash out our royalties anytime, like about a 10th, and then we get about a 15th, but it's still not much money. 300 here, 500 here. And I said, no, they got away with murder, really, to be quite honest. So I just happen to be on Twitter, which is my favorite. I love Twitter out of all social media because you can really contact somebody right away.
That's how we met.
Yes, we did. So I went to Rolling Stone and I said, hey, I got a story for y'all guys. I said, because something's not right with this. And I got in touch. Well, one of the writers reached out to me, Jonathan Bernstein, who did an excellent job on this story. And he wrote the story. I put him in touch with Tim, who used to work for Concord Music Group that I knew very well, who used to help me with royalties because we get royalties from Concord Music Group. They talked to a person who used to work for Sony that left that I knew. And they talked to Ron Sweeney, who's a big time attorney, entertainment attorney, and talked to some other people. And they said I did a great job because they said if this had been 7-10 years ago, Sony wouldn't have done that. So now, let's fast forward. Sony's going to set up and come up with this new thing about now they're not going to recoup anybody's royalties, no one. Oh. And they're trying to say it's because of them. It's not. It's because of me. Because if that was the case, they would have told me when we talked on the phone, or they would have told me in the email. So I told them again, I said, y'all lying. I said, if it wasn't for me shaming y'all, we would have never gotten this money. So this is what makes this so special. Sony is humongous. You got Universal, you got Warner Brothers. What I did with Sony is now, let's say, I looked at some of the artists that Sony has under their name: Adele, Backstreet Boys, Alan Jackson, Alicia Keys, all these big artists. Oh, BB Rexa, who my son likes, and she is a pop star. And you know, for pop, they only have ever so many years to make their money, and they're done. Yeah. Weston says she only sold 4,000 albums a couple of weeks ago. She's a perfect example of what could happen. So she goes to Sony and says, hey, I want an advancement of $100,000 against my next album or whatever. That album doesn't live up to the expectations. She doesn't make that kind of money to pay them back. They used to could go and take their royalties, but because of what I did, they can't take royalties anymore. Wow. They cannot take their royalties. So this is going to help. And I know everybody's like, well, Beyonce and Adele, they got plenty of money, but a lot of people had plenty of money back in the day, and it can dwindle really quick. And then next thing you know, their heirs would have to do the same thing that I did. So this is a big thing because now all of us are protected from Sony, where they can no longer recoup our royalties and use, take our royalties to pay back advancements.
And it's not like it's Beyonce and Adele that need this kind of protection. It's the middle of the road artists, the ones that have one or two great albums and then, are banking on a third and it fizzles or whatever happens that just comes up. You can't, it's a gamble. What people are fickle. We don't know that they're going to continue to enjoy whatever the sound of the moment that you're putting out. So what you've done is incredibly beneficial to those like the working artists.
Yeah, and even with Beyonce and those, and I know they have plenty of money, but royalties go for the rest of our lives. So
absolutely.
Yeah, it can happen. And we've heard artists who've had millions and millions of dollars and go broke. And not saying that they will, but to me, it's just a great thing because now it's like I hit that one domino, and now it's hitting other dominoes, because this is going to carry over into Universal, and this is going to carry over to Warner Brothers, and this is going to carry over to a lot of other ones. And by the way, I got an update today from Sony. the attorney who's going to help us get my father's master's and help us with some stuff, because I'm not finished with Sony. They said Sony hates this story. They hate it because it makes them look bad. And they are bad. Let's face it, Sony's bad. And they said that they wanted to go away. Well, to me, if y'all would have done right by us in the first place, we wouldn't be in this situation. So you get what you get. I'm not a petty person, but I feel like David, who went up against Goliath, because it was no way this was going to happen if I hadn't shamed them into it. So I'm very proud to have shamed Sony Music into doing this.
And it's such a giant catalog that your father had.
I'm still in shock. He had 8 albums that we didn't know about.
Well, and the amazing thing too, with the biggest hit that he had, I mean, he had that later in life, especially for an artist. I mean, younger than I am now, but he would have been 42, I think, when Disco Lady went to the top.
I think so, because he was born in 1934, May 5th, 1934.
Right,
and he died, because he was 61, somewhere in there when he passed away. And that was in 2000. So that was 20 years ago.
Also, too, I mean, like, you never know when a song from the past is going to be used for something big in the present. Things come back all the time, and like, look at Journey, Don't Stop Believing, when Sopranos.
We sing that at the football games.
Yeah.
And I mean, you just
that one never went away.
What's that one song you hear? It's a song. Oh gosh, you hear Bill Withers' "Lovely Day" all the time.
Oh yeah, Lovely Day.
You hear "Lovely Day" all the time. You know, and you hear some of these old songs. So, and then my father had songs in movies. One was a movie with Elizabeth Hurley. I forgot what the name of the movie was, but also in Baby Boy with Tyrese, Jody's Got Your Girl and Gone. And somebody else had told me it was another movie his song was in. So again, these record companies, to me, they know exactly what they're doing. And also, I'm gonna tell you something, they know what they're doing. They bank on a lot of these artists being on drugs. They bank on it.
This has come up over and over, as Kirk said, in our little dinky podcast here. So often, the record execs are all scumbags. They're all out to make a buck and to screw over their artists. And they bank on artists being artists, not even being druggies. I mean, my mom's an artist. She makes her living painting and teaching art, and she really struggles. She doesn't struggle with doing her taxes and things like that. She's fine with it, but it's not what motivates her. It's not what moves her. Numbers don't motivate artists. Their art motivates artists. So an opportunity to make money and, use your art as a method to actually provide a life for yourself. That's what motivates them. The details of all of this stuff, that's what the record companies bank on, is that, well, they're not gonna pay attention to that because that's not what they love. What they love is their art. We're going to provide them an opportunity to do their art, and on the other side of it, we're going to screw them over for as much as we can, because we're banking on the fact that they are not astute when it comes to legal documents and numbers, and that's not fair.
Has this transferred over to like streaming then, Fonda? Like, is there money generated from like?
Through Sound Exchange, and we didn't even know about that until actually Andrea Finkelstein told me with Sony, and they're really dirty because Jerlene, his ex-wife, who was divorced from him 10 days before he died, she was able to set up and use a fake death certificate, because she had marked she was still married to our father when she was not, because they divorced 10 days before he died. She was able to forge that document and hold out to Sound Exchange that there were only 2 heirs. Only two children.
Wild.
And she stole 18 years, and we're going to actually have to sue them and sue Sound Exchange, because Sound Exchange is a nonprofit. And they said if we hadn't come forward within 3 years, that they don't have to pay us that money back. And I said, we'll see about that. So it's just all these things. But then I remember when I met Sam of Sam and Dave, and he told me he never did drugs. or anything until he got in the entertainment industry. And they know exactly what they're doing, because it's almost like you sat down with the devil and he said, I'm gonna give you all these riches, I'm gonna give you women, I'm gonna give you drugs, and all you got to do is sign your life away. That's all you got to do. And for some of these artists, when you think about, my father came from Crawfordsville, Arkansas. And then you think about the trauma that a lot of these Black artists had to deal with. That's how my mom met my father, because he was with the Soul Stirrers. He had taken Sam Cooke's place. And I remember as a kid, Black men walking around with ties around their head because they had their hair processed. My mom and those had the Staple Singers at the house. I remember sitting on Pop Staples' lap and him telling us stories. Wow. Because Black people were playing their music and dancing to it, but they couldn't go in hotels, they couldn't go in restaurants. So they come to my grandmother's house and take a breather. So that's trauma. That's why I said with African Americans, we're dealing with generational trauma. I never forget watching a movie with the Temptations Forever. And it was a Motown bus with the Temptations, the Supremes, and all of them. And they came through a Southern town and people were shooting at them and stuff. Can you imagine the trauma? Like my father knows, Pop Staples told us a story when we were kids. And he said that they were coming through some Southern town and they were driving a Cadillac. And back then, being a Black person, having a Cadillac was a no-no. And they were driving, they stopped to get some gas. And a white gas attendant, was going to hit Pop Staples in the head with a tire iron. And Purvis, his son, beat the man up. They jumped in the car and drove down the road, and the police stopped them. And thank goodness they didn't kill him. That's the kind of stuff they had to deal with every freaking day back then, and hone their craft and get paid nothing for what they were doing. And I think that was one of the reasons that drove me to do that. I thought about all of those guys. My father, all of them had to be out there on that road, could get lynched, could get killed, had no law to protect them. So I think that's part of the thing that drove me to with Sony is, hey, y'all been taking advantage of Black artists for a long time, and it stops here in 2020.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think you're doing amazing work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. I just smiled today when I did that television interview. I just smiled. I said, because here I am, a woman from Gastonia, North Carolina, and I said, but I just knew it was wrong what they were doing, and I truly believe it was divine intervention too. But I just know what Sony was doing. They had to be accountable because they've taken advantage of so many people. Clive Davis, when you look at him, because he used to be the CEO of Sony, and when you look at what happened to Whitney Houston, for instance, the drugs, the alcohol, her beautiful voice, somebody told me, they said, when you go to the Grammys, it's drug dealers. And who made that song? Was it, they said the drug dealers on speed dial, Nickelback. And they're not lying. They're not lying.
Yeah, rock stars.
They're there right there at the Grammys.
Yep.
That's right, actually something that Andrea and I usually apologize to Americans for, is Nickelback.
I like them. Hey, they're my phone. I work out to Nickelback.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes, I like them.
No.
But yeah, seriously, I mean, when you think about it though, it's just a wonder. I mean, like Aerosmith, I've seen them like 2-3 times in concert. And it's something how they say they still have to keep chocolate backstage to keep that craving for heroin. And you're like, man, I mean, I love music. I love live music. But when you kind of pull back those layers backstage, it's a lot of ugliness.
Absolutely. And it's across all genres. It's not just rock music or just country music or just anything. And there's been movie after movie that have just detailed that. And there's been so many talented artists that have been ripped apart by drugs.
Still recently.
Absolutely.
Rihanna who just became a billionaire apparently. But when she first came out, there was a story that she almost filed for bankruptcy like 2 years into her career.
Who?
Rihanna.
Oh
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it certainly obviously worked out well for her. But TLC, there is this famous thing, I think might have been at the Grammys, I'm not sure, but where they were at the awards, and this is when Waterfalls came out, their biggest hit, and they said, we're broke.
Mhm.
What about New Edition? They came back on tour and said they had $100. And see, that's why I'm saying why these deals, this what I did, it's going to help them, because I know Bobby Brown and some of them have definitely taken out advancements. Now they don't have to worry about paying that money, paying their advancements back through royalties. So yeah, because I saw that New Edition story, and they were out down the road working hard and came back home with about $100 in their pocket. And see, that's what people think. They think, oh man, they're out here putting up all these hits, they're making all this money. And that's what Ron Sweeney said, the attorney. He said that the royalties that a lot of people get is pennies on the dollar. Because people tell me that all the time, oh, y'all must be getting a killing in royalties. No, we're not. I've gotten royalty checks that's, like I said, been $1 or something, even from some of the other labels like BMG, BMI, $33, $55. I don't think I've ever gotten a royalty check from BMI or BMG over $70.
It's crazy.
Over 70. I don't think I have. The two biggest checks that we get, the two record companies we probably get the most, is Malico out of Jackson, Mississippi, and that's another shady company. And then Concord Music Group out in Beverly Hills, California. Those are the two. And one in Beverly Hills is dropped off big time.
Actually, after learning you were on TV today, I'm really honored that you came on our show.
I was thinking
It's kind of a drop
exactly the
down.
same thing.
I'm fond of that. Like I told you, I think, the thing with me is I'm always going to stay humble, because I've always been a big person on helping people. That's why I love doing what I do with mental health and suicide prevention. It's a great feeling to give of yourself and
you just won an award for that, right?
Yes, I did. Now, the thing is, Kirk, when I get an award for my work with mental health, it makes me very uncomfortable. I won the National Remarkable Woman of the Year this year. They flew me out to Los Angeles, put me up in a beautiful hotel, gave me spending money, and I had to call my therapist, because in my mind, dealing with depression and anxiety, I didn't even feel like I deserved it. And that's what mental health does to you. It beats you up and makes you feel less than. I don't care how much money you have, where you live, are you college educated? It doesn't care about that. And then in September, I won an award for my work with mental health. And like I said, I get a lot of anxiety from that, because my real reward comes from helping people. I had a college student at East Carolina reach out to me just a couple of weeks ago. I did not know her. She said, Miss Fonda, I got your number she didn't even tell me. I said, that's okay. What can I help you with? I'm struggling, Miss Fonda. I've been thinking about, I don't want to be here. And I work with her. And as a matter of fact, tonight she sent me a text and she said, her family doesn't want, it's that stigma. If they go get help, everybody's going to know. So we work together, and her dad is going to make sure she goes to therapy. So that's where my reward comes from, stopping them from going down that path of suicide or putting them on the path of mental wellness. So when you're in this kind of field, it crosses all across my life that I'm always going to stay humble. I'm always going to help people, because that's how I was in the first place. So anytime y'all want me to come on and talk or anything, absolutely, I'm more than happy to do that.
Well, but I guess Nickelback, because you'll be the defender. Andrea and I.
Yes, I'll be the defender of Nickelback. I sure will. Hey, I like that song. Matter of fact, that's right there in my thing.
All right. Well,
to the ground.
And one plug, because you've got a podcast too. What's it called? Where can people listen to it?
It's called Wellness Action Recovery, the War Podcast. And the acronyms of my nonprofit are WAR, because we have to go to war every day, just getting up out of the bed, going to work, being able to make it through the day. We also go to war with the public to let, because people think we're crazy, we're nuts, we're psycho. So my podcast always have that mental health twist. And I like to talk about current stories and sports stories and it has that mental health twist. Like, I'm going to be talking about Calvin Ridley, who just took a break from the Atlanta Falcons, and yet he's getting flack from an NFL player on what's that show called? Not Pardon the Interruption.
Oh,
but speak for yourself. Marcellus Wiley, he said,
yeah.
and I quote, he said that the NFL is not for the mentally weak or physically weak. He said, you need to get a job at the post office if you're mentally weak or mentally, So we're gonna have a little conversation.
So wrong on so many levels.
Yes.
And also, I can guarantee you the number of mentally weak people in the NFL is probably staggeringly high in terms of all sorts of different things.
But you know what? The thing is, I tell people all the time is that this is a societal issue, because what he said, yes, it's terrible. And he said it on TV. But how many of people that I talk to or everyday people say ugly things like, oh, they're crazy, they're nuts, they're psycho, they're cray. So
Hey,
you
how many
can't
people
judge
say
other
that?
people when they're doing it.
How many people say that about themselves on a regular basis?
Well, that's called internalizing stigma.
Exactly.
And that's something that all my friends that they now do when they sit up and say, well, they'll say, so-and-so is crazy. They'll look at me and I say, yeah, they know what I'm thinking, and they stop. Just like people say, commit suicide. I say, y'all, you don't commit suicide. You commit a crime, you commit a robbery. It used to be a criminal act to take your own life. So even little things like that you change can help stop stigma and help people to get help. So again, I'm always grateful to be here, and I take one day at a time, and I never take for granted that I'm here because I'm still battling depression. I might look great, but I have
Absolutely.
I have, and that's the thing with a mental health condition. You can look perfectly healthy on the outside. We don't look like we have like people with cancer and other physical conditions, but we can be struggling just as bad. So nope, always gonna stay Fonda. Anytime y'all need me, come on. And I love this anyway, where y'all dissect songs. I think that's really neat.
No, we'll definitely have you.
I will never look at that song the same ever.
Well, you may never even hear it again. I don't even know where that.
Well, we have that. You got the easy. What do you call those? Elevator music stations here, kind of the easy listening.
Yeah.
And we do have a station in Concord, 98.3, and they do play oldies. So I'm sure they played it before, but I will never.
Very well possible. Living on an island, all I hear is soca all day.
I would never look at that song again the same. And I will always think of it now as that lady was dealing with depression and she needed some help. And like she said, Andrea said, her husband was clueless, but it was a different and that's really something though, because that was a different generation. The Beaver Cleaver, mom stayed at home, husband went to work.
Well, men are still clueless. That hasn't changed.
No, it's gotten a little bit better. A little bit. I'm working hard to change, but a little bit better. But I think y'all show is great.
Oh, thank you.
Do y'all do this every week where y'all dissect the song?
We do this every week.
And Andrea gets
to pick the song. Dissect Black Betty.
Well, Black Betty never went #1, so.
Oh, so it has to be something
that hit the Billboard #1.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. What about the song by Redbone, "Come and Get Your Love"? Did that go to #1?
Yes, it did.
That's a great. And by the way, we were talking about it. Commercials. It was a song for what commercial was it? It was for a product. Come and get it. Applebee's.
Okay.
Applebee's.
Oh yeah. Well, not only that, because it got part of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and another Netflix cartoon, F is for Family, who uses that one. So somebody's
were they a one-hit
money
wonder?
off of that.
Were they a one-hit wonder?
Yes. But yeah, an interesting group too, because they're all Native American.
Yeah, they were all Native American.
That's something that we can look at, but usually we like to look at bad songs.
Oh, so because that's a great
song. Always.
We've thrown in some good ones too.
Bill Withers, we did.
Y'all can do. How about the night that the lights went out in Georgia?
Well, that might be it. I don't know what Andrea picked. We alternate picks.
What I have picked for next week is Rick Springfield.
Jesse's Girl.
I hate that song.
Fonda, do you want to come back for that?
Well, if y'all ever want me, I hate that song when it comes on the radio, because I like 80s music. Yeah. And when I've gone up to a football game and I'm coming back on Saturday nights, 102.9 plays 80s music. Mm-hmm. Every time that comes on, I turn the radio.
I love that song because Jesse is a friend. He's got a good friend of mine. But lately,
let him stick to acting on General Hospital.
that still on?
Yeah, he was on Rick
No, but is that
Springfield
show
was
still on?
General Hospital.
Oh yeah, he was. He
Dr.
actually
What
had
was
a
his
pretty-
name? What
Rick
was his name?
Springfield.
Yeah.
He had a pretty
Ladies-
prolific acting career as well, as you know, as he
That's a
got
good
older.
song, Andrew, for y'all to tear apart, because that,
Well,
and that's a typical,
I'll be
I
defending
don't
that
care
one.
how many 80s, all of the music, like, you know how, what's that station? Sirius XM will give us, like, for the holidays and stuff, they give you that free weekend, you know, you can listen to it. I swear, with all of the music in the world on the 80s station, they always got to play that.
Oh yeah.
Massive song.
Well, go ahead, Andrea. I think, so do you always pick the songs?
No, we
alternate.
switch week to week.
Okay.
We
Well,
alternate.
I'm gonna listen to, I'm gonna start watching this now, because I think that's fascinating that y'all tear songs up.
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes we get.
Sometimes we support them.
So
For
do
the
y'all,
most
part.
so is it always, so y'all go back and forth, you support some and some are,
Depends what it is. I mean, like last week we did "Come On Eileen" by Dexy's Midnight
ain't
Runners.
stand that either.
I couldn't as a kid. I'd come to actually appreciate this group a lot more because I never did a deep dive on Dexy's.
Didn't they win a
Midnight Runners.
Grammy? I think they won for Artist of the Year that year. I think they
I
did.
believe they did. Yes.
Yeah, I think they did. And then we never heard from them again.
Well, they didn't. Yeah, but they did in the UK. They were actually very, very big there for a longer period of time. So we looked at a lot of what they did, and I think we pretty much successfully analyzed why that became a hit, because it was very different from what was going on then. This song, well, we couldn't really figure it out.
We've
Well, you
done
know,
everything from Oh Mickey to
Yeah, that reminds me when I was pregnant. I can't stand that song.
to
You said you liked everything in the 80s, and we've just named three
Except for
80s
that.
songs you hate.
Except, I'm gonna tell you, in the 80s, Big Duran. But
Me too.
it's not hardly anything that Duran put out. And then one of the songs that they put out in the 90s is one of my, I think it was my anthem for what I was going through with depression and anxiety. Come Undone. That's probably one of my favorite
Yeah, that's a
songs
good
by
one.
them. And that describes exactly how I was feeling at that time. So, and I'm gonna tell you something else. Y'all need to go back through some of the best, you know how the Grammys had, what was it, Best New Artist? Do y'all remember the group
Mhm.
Soul to Soul that had Back to
That's-
Life?
Yeah.
What happened to, now they had two songs. They had Keep On Moving. But
I
what happened to them?
I think I could be wrong. I think they had apologies if I have this wrong. I think they had a really serious bus crash.
Ah,
Uh,
was
I
that
could-
I thought that might have been Arrested Development. No, that wasn't them.
No, Arrested Development put
Tennessee.
out a crap album and then they were done.
Yeah, because that's what I'm saying. When you look at even some of the best new artists that came out, because when Soul to Soul came out, I thought they were going to be around forever.
They
Oh.
should have been. Well,
a
actually,
lot
we
of
did
the
that.
best new artists fizzled immediately afterwards.
Remember when we did a Starland vocal band, Andrea? Afternoon Delight, a song
Afternoon
about having
Delight. And I
sex
didn't know
at
that
noon?
song was nasty until I got older. Just like Disco
Oh.
Lady. I didn't know Disco Lady was
Push it in, pull it out. Come
I
on.
did not know that. I did not know that song was nasty until somebody said, Fonda, that song is nasty. And I was like, oh, I didn't. Or how about this? What about Donna Summer? I Feel Love. Remember that song? And
Oh,
she
yes.
was, yes. Remember that thing was about 9 minutes long.
Oh, yes.
I Feel Love, because I listen to that sometimes too.
5 minutes longer than I usually last.
I was waiting for that joke, Kirk.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, when you look back on some of these songs, and you just can't help but to get tickled when you think about some of, they had a lot of meanings that we didn't, you just be sitting up singing, I Feel Love. And what was that other song that they yanked to Donna Summer that they wouldn't even play? I Love to Love You, Baby.
Well, I don't know. It was, but yeah, but it's because she's doing orgasms in the middle in the song. Like, I'm not going to try to, but yeah.
Please don't.
Well,
Yeah.
well, mine's usually this now at this point, stage of my life. Sorry.
We're gonna lose viewers if you keep doing
You
that,
are,
Kirk.
y'all are really hilarious. I'm telling you, I'm surprised what people don't know about this. This is really a unique podcast. I really like it because where y'all go through and rip songs.
Well, I mean, if you want to,
y'all never rip one.
you're
of Madonna's?
welcome. You're welcome to come back next week if you want to because I'm going to be defending Rick Springfield here. I like this song.
Have that y'all ripped Madonna yet, Andrea? Any of her
We have
songs?
not attempted Madonna yet. That's like a mountain. She's
Yeah,
up
she's
here.
going around now showing her butt cheeks at what, 60 something years old and dating
Yeah.
a young man, young enough to be her son.
Oh, if not grandson at this point.
Yeah, because he's 23, 24. I
Yeah,
said,
but-
oh, Madonna, do
wow.
what you do, girl. Well, y'all are awesome. I really enjoyed this tonight. I needed a good laugh because I'm telling you, I'm tired.
Our
and I gotta-
pleasure. Our
I gotta
pleasure.
speak tomorrow I'm at a high school all day tomorrow. They had invited me to come to talk to them about mental health and suicide prevention because they're starting a mental wellness initiative. But the same school, which is a great school in a nice area, I love their principal. They found 2 guns last week, and some students got into a fight, and these kids got to quit videotaping stuff. And they were fighting, and the gun fell out of the person's pocket. So we're gonna have a nice little conversation tomorrow, especially with Black kids, and let them know, guys, it's not a given that we go to school with white kids. A lot of people, Black and white, had to die. And I think these kids really take for granted that they don't realize our history, how many people had to die. So one of the things I'm gonna say to the kids tomorrow is, for the Black students, I'm saying, how many of y'all came to school this morning and white people were out there spitting on you and screaming and calling you the N-word? How many of y'all came to school to that? None of you. And I'm just going to kind of talk to them about it and say, you know something, I'm going to use the example of Viola Alonzo, who came from Michigan. She was white, left behind her 5 children, came from Michigan, drove all the way down to Mississippi or Alabama. She was riding Freedom Riders around. Klan saw her, shot her and killed her. And so one day I was substitute teaching and the kids were just off the chain. And I was like, okay, I've had it. So I said, y'all, if Miss Alonzo was here, if she was here, I said, now, remember, she died and left behind 5 children and a husband, and her reputation, the FBI ruined her reputation, said she was a communist, she was all this stuff, and she wasn't. I said, so if she was here right now, sitting right there in that chair in the corner of the room, give me one word to describe what she would say about how y'all acted in here. Disappointed, angry, upset. I said, okay, what are y'all gonna do to change that? I said, she's dead. She didn't get to see her children, her grandchildren, go to weddings, graduations. And I said, y'all come to school and act a fool every day. I got on them. So that's the same thing I'm doing tomorrow, to remind them that them going to school is not a given, and they should take pride and come to school. And this bringing guns to school, where it used to be when I was in school, people would get into a fight, get suspended 2 or 3 days, come back to school, everything's fine. Now they want to take a life. They want to take a life.
A schoolyard fight when I was a kid was someone at the very worst might have a broken nose.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's
Now they're getting bringing
punching
guns.
each other.
Mhm.
There's no weapons involved.
And a lot of it is bullying. And I tell people all the time, we are a mean society. And it's not just the kids, it's the adults too. No manners, please, thank you, all of that is gone. And that's part of the problem. So I'll be over there all day tomorrow, and I know I'm gonna be drained, but anytime I can touch students and have them thinking and to change the way that they've been thinking and get them options, that's what I'm there to do. And a lot of kids come up to me and tell me, Miss Fonda, I don't have anybody to talk to. Parents should be the first line of conversation. They should. So I feel for these kids. I really do. I feel for them, but at the same token, this bringing guns to school, that's not the answer. That's not the answer. I'm so glad I'm not that age anymore.
You're out there fighting the good fight, and
I
have
am. I'm
so
trying,
much
Andrea.
respect for you. So
Well,
much
thank you. And
respect.
it's so nice to meet y'all guys, but y'all keep this up because it's just wonderful. And I might not always get on here, but I definitely am going to start following this because I think it's hilarious, but I also think it's seriousness in it, because Andrea and I kind of figured out that that lady and Bobby and Honey was probably dealing with depression, and she might have even taken her own life, which is kind of sad. But it's great that y'all go into depth about those lyrics, because a lot of us didn't know, don't know. So y'all keep up the good work.
Oh, thanks so much.
I'm gonna tell my friends about y'all too.
Oh,
All right, you do
appreciate
that.
it.
And
Is it any way where I can share some of these on my
Oh, yeah,
Facebook page?
Yeah, I'll send you the link when it's all done. And
Okay.
with that, everyone, stay safe, everybody, and we'll see you all next week.
See y'all guys. Take care. Nice meeting you,
Bye.
Andrea. Bye, guys.
All right.
Have a good night.
You too.